Well, today is International Day Against Anti-Semitism and Fascism, widely recognized across Europe. November 9th, 1938 was the day the Nazis began their program against the Jews, setting synagogues on fire and vandalizing stores and businesses owned by Jews. Many see this as the symbolic start of the Holocaust. Well, we wanted to take today to look deeper into a new study published by the Anti-Defamation League that examined American attitudes toward Jews in this country. There were many facets of this, but one of the most significant things it found is that anti-Semitic attitudes have increased in the last couple of years, with about 15% of Americans falling in the most anti-Semitic cohort. I want to talk about some of the specifics of this report. Abraham Foxman is the National Director with the Anti-Defamation League. He is in our studio in New York. Hey there, Abe. Let's dig a little deeper into this report. What do you think are the most important takeaways?
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that after many years of it coming down, I remember when we started doing the surveys in the 60s, approximately 30% of the American people were infected with serious anti-Semitism. And since then, it's been coming down. And I think the most serious element is the fact that all of a sudden it's up again. The last survey we did 2 years ago was 12%. Now it's 15%. Now, percentage-wise, it's, I guess, small, but that means millions more Americans are anti-Semitic today, more anti-Semitic than they were 2 or 3 years ago.
I want to put up some of the answers to a few different questions in this survey regarding the power of Jews in America. Now, this bar graph shows that 78% of people think Jews have too much power in business, 67% think they have too much power in the U.S. overall, and 71% think Jews have too much control over Wall Street. These are obviously tough economic times. Is this simply the idea that people are taking out their frustrations on the Jewish community, or is there something else here?
Well, the answer is yes, but I need to correct, the way you read the statistics. Overall in the United States, we're talking about 15, 17, 19% in answer to your questions. What you're talking about is in that group, which is heavily anti-Semitic. In that group, you get that huge number on all of these issues. But to get to your question, yes, I think every time there's economic instability, there's social instability, anytime people are unhappy, anxious about their present and future, they look for scapegoats. And Jews have been a convenient scapegoat throughout the ages. And money in Jews is a convenient stereotype throughout the years. And so when we see economic instability, when we see anxiety in terms of people's futures, they look to blame somebody. And Jews have been blamed throughout the ages.
I definitely appreciate that clarification. I'm wondering, though, I really want to be careful here and make sure people, our viewers, know that for this survey, which I believe was conducted a few weeks ago, 1,700 plus people were answered questions for this survey. So despite the fact that, that's how polling works, we want to be really careful in saying that those answers automatically translate into the opinions of 35 million Americans. I mean, how do you deal with those kind of questions?
Well, polling is not an exact science, but it does give you an accurate picture of people's attitudes, how they feel. Again, we have developed this index 40 years ago, and the index has been pretty solid in terms, not only in the U.S., we've done it in Europe, we've done it in Russia as well. And what basically is that if you answer 6 or 7 out of the 11 questions in saying yes, Jews are too powerful, Jews kill Christ, Jews only care about themselves, if you quack like a duck, walk like a duck, act like a duck, you're a duck. Now, there are a lot of other Americans who only agree with 2 or 3. These are people who have prejudiced views, but we wouldn't characterize them as anti-Semites. But I think it's a pretty accurate description, characterization of attitudes. And we've been able to monitor them. Again, in Europe, it's a lot worse. We did a similar survey in Russia in 1999. And the overall, same questions, and it came out to 44% of the Russian population, at least 99. We haven't done one since, as compared to what is today 15%
Wow.
are infected. Now, again, Russia, unfortunately, has a tradition going back to Tsarist times, communist times, of a serious prejudice against Jews. I believe it's getting better. How much better, I don't know. But if you answer those questions consistently, you've got a problem, and your problem is with Jews.
I think there were a lot of people, though, who, they would never, ever identify themselves as anti-Semitic or even as people who harbor negative opinions of Jews, but who are frustrated nonetheless at the power of, for example, the Jewish lobby, AIPAC, in this country, and also frustrated at the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, how leaders in the U.S. seem to support Israel carte blanche, and how much of that anger has fueled, other countries to be angry with this country.
Well,
do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, it's a little bit part of it, but that's also nonsense. To say that leaders of the United States support Israel carte blanche is nonsense. If you talk about the Israel lobby, what about the oil lobby? What about foreign lobbies? They exist. This is part of the democratic system of lobbying. That's not a control element. It's a question of open attitudes, debates. We elect people on a variety of issues. And to say that the Israel lobby controls American foreign policy or government is another stereotype.
Well, I'm certainly not suggesting that it controls it. I'm suggesting that a lot of people are frustrated by the amount of money and the amount of power that it has, because you mentioned the oil lobby.
Well, how do you measure the money, and how do you measure the power? What does power mean? It means
I guess power means that
because you vote.
Absolutely, but I guess power means that, despite the rest of the world being angry at Israel's decision to continue to build settlements, the U.S. continues to support Israel, despite their saying they will continue this. People around the world angry at the U.S., and this is not me saying this. This is a factual statement. A lot of people in a lot of other countries around the world are angry at the U.S. for their maybe not 100% support for Israel, but their majority of the time support.
Well, basically what you're saying is the rest of the world is right, the U.S. is wrong, Israel's wrong. Well, that also is a prejudice. That also is a stereotype. What makes all these countries right and the United States wrong, or Israel wrong? In an open society, if you agree, you don't agree, that doesn't make you right or wrong.
Again, and just to clarify, I'm not saying that this is what I personally think.
I'm not saying you are.
Right. I'm just saying that this is what, we have guests on this show all the time, and we also look at a lot of reports and statistics about the level of frustration. But I want to move on to this recent thing that happened. This, you could call it the oops, my microphone was on and I didn't realize it moment last week in France at the G20. This was a conversation between President Obama and French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Sarkozy called the Israel Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, a liar. And President Obama was overheard saying something like, oh, you're fed up with him, I have to deal with him every day. Several GOP candidates have come forward demanding that President Obama apologize, and I know you've written about this. You said that the ADL is extremely disappointed that this was unpresidential. I guess expound on this. What do you think the president should do, assuming that this was a true statement?
I'm not. Well, I assume he said it. I think we would all be shocked if other conversations, which are private, I wonder how they feel about Abu Mazen. I wonder how they feel about President Putin. That doesn't get us anywhere. What the president does or doesn't do, that's up to him. I think it is, however, a serious question that if those are the attitudes, those are the feelings, to what extent it influences foreign policy. And I guess the same question can be asked about President Medvedev and Putin. What do their personal feelings about President Obama or Chancellor Merkel or Sarkozy, to what extent do they impact? That's a very serious question to which we don't have an answer, but we certainly should be concerned. We certainly should be concerned.
Certainly, I think you and I might both find it interesting to be flies on the wall in the conversations of some of these world leaders. I want to ask a quick question, though, about the ADL. I know
Sure.
that our producers here at RT had originally hoped to have a debate about this survey, to sort of see the different sides of it. But I know when our producers booked the interview with you, with your media people, they said that you'd come on the show, but that you wouldn't be willing to debate the position of the ADL. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say why. I mean, isn't debate a good way to forward the conversation?
Well, I'm not sure. Debate what? Debate an anti-Semite, which was one of the original suggestions. You know, what to defend anti-Semitism. So I don't understand what debate is. We have a survey. If you know, the polling data, the procedures, the techniques are not ours. They're what every polling institution does. So I'm not sure what it is that we're going to debate. If there are people who say that there is an anti-Semitism, that's fine. You can have whoever you want. I'm just not about to discuss with somebody who's, I don't think there's anybody serious who doesn't think there's anti-Semitism. Now, to what level? Have they done polls? Have they studied? Are they scholars? And the people, you know, that were floated by me don't fit that category. I have no problem sitting and discussing the issue with people who disagree. You know, before coming on the air, with all due respect, no, I was not going to debate an anti-Semite, and some of the names that were brought forward were not, in our judgment, serious people. But you can go on an hour later and put on whoever you want who can question and challenge. I appear on panels and forums and debate. But I think to debate whether there is or there isn't anti-Semitism, I'm not sure has any value.
Well, regardless, we do think it's an important discussion to have. Abraham Foxman, National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, thanks so much for coming on and sharing kind of the takeaway from that survey.
All right. May I just say something? I think the very fact that RT focused on the anniversary, the 73rd anniversary of Kristallnacht, to take this subject and to look at it and to examine it is something very much appreciated, and just indicates a sense of history and perspective that you have. And for that, thank you very much.
And again, we do thank you for coming on the show today.
Okay, thank you.